What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the No Fun League. Today, I'm joined by Justin Penik from Talking Giants. By far the best Giants podcast out there. You guys should definitely take a listen, even if you're not a fan of the Giants. He does JM football as well, which is really good. So check out all of his content. Thank you for being on the show.
What's going on, man? Happy to be here. Seeing my beard, the evolution of my beard on Zoom, and it is scaring the crap out of me. No, but this is the dead time of football, but also it's some of the I'd say it's one of the more fun times to talk about football because everybody's 0-0, everybody's got a lot of optimism, and so do my Giants.
Yeah, no, it was probably the best time for Giants fans the last decade. It's the summer
Yeah.
before training camp starts.
Yeah, and then even last trading camp, we were Super Bowl champs, and what I would give to have that back.
I think it's weird that 2 years ago, Dable's first year, the offense sucked in training camp,
Hmm.
and we're all so low on it. And the season starts and they play well. And last year, we get Waller, we have a couple other pieces, and we're so high on the offense. The first preseason game, they look good, and then it's just a complete and utter shit show.
Well, the ironic thing about Brian Dable and his offense and the way that it's looked in training camp over the last 2 years is the product of what we've seen in the summer is very different than what we've seen on the field. And like you said, even just from a performance standpoint, that's true, but also just from, I think what Brian Dable wants to accomplish on offense is explosiveness, and it's pushing the ball down the field and it's throwing the ball a lot. And overall, what we've seen, especially in 2022, this is what we saw. I think they tried to do it through the first couple weeks of the season. And then it's like, man, this just isn't working. Galladay's not working. Tony's not working. And then even Daniel Jones, there are some guys running open down the field and Jones just isn't seeing them and Jones isn't connecting. So then they just switch to this ultra run first offense. And we're going to give Saquon Barkley like over 20 touches a game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where they switched and they adjusted. And it's great. Hey, it's great to have a coach in Brian Dable that is actually able to adjust. And then even last year, you saw the same thing in training camp. And then what do we see? Andrew Thomas tears his hamstring. It was just a perfect storm last year, man. Of anything that could have gone wrong for that offense and that team really did, where it was the combo of Jones really just wasn't seeing the field and seeing the guys that were running deep and what Brian Dable and Mike Kafka asked him to progress. And then also you had, everything on the offensive line go wrong, including Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal not taking that year two step up. So really it was the perfect storm, but it's also a credit to Brian Dable and why I think he's still here is that they still won 6 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense at some points last year with Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito did look functioning at certain points. And that he's a coach that's able to adjust versus I think some of these other coaches that we've had in the past, and maybe even since Tom Coughlin, let's just say, he's been able to adjust with circumstances that he didn't necessarily prepare for during the summer and during the offseason.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And I think the biggest thing for me, and I don't have as much insight as you and Bobby do. I for the most part have just been a casual fan, and it takes a long time to get out of like the fan side of things and like actually look analytically at your team. But every coach since Coughlin with McAdoo, Shermer, and Joe Judge, year two, second half of the season, the locker room imploded on them every
Mhm.
single time. And that didn't even come close to happening to Dable. The Eagles had everything to fight for week 18, and we blew the fuck out of them.
Yeah.
And like that is, I think that's a massive credit. And I was watching Brett Coleman's video on the Giants yesterday that he posted, and they were talking about that too, and the adjustments that have been made. And I think Joe Shaden too, like they've been able to adjust philosophies for team building in a way as well. Last year they tried to, go all in a way, but they also did it in a very low risk, high reward way with Darren
Right.
Waller, which, he retired. He has a budding music career to get to. But, that's fine. Like I will get into the draft and stuff, but like I don't think I've been as excited for a day three pick as I am for Theo Johnson. So I'm
Yeah.
honestly fine with Waller retiring because Theo Johnson will get playing time earlier. And I haven't seen any photos yet, but I hope he's at tight end U right now, getting Gabe
Yeah,
from
usually they
Chelsea.
are. Usually, even going back to, Gettleman and Judge, usually all the, I think even Engram intended those tight end use stuff. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm excited for those pictures to come out.
Oh, for sure. But like I think my first question is like, which one of the new additions on the team are you most excited for this season?
I mean, it's got to be Malik Neighbors, right? Even though I'll tell you what, my brain did go to Brian Burns first before Malik Neighbors. And it almost feels like because of Neighbors and also I think because of how low Giants fans are on the team right now, and rightfully so. Like they haven't provided any how they're going to provide optimism is by winning football games, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the way that it should be. Um, but people have almost forgot about Brian Burns, and I hope it doesn't disappoint. Like I hope Brian Burns does not disappoint because man, they gave him a lot of money. He's now I think a top three. He's either the second or third highest paid edge rusher in the National Football League right now. Like Micah Parsons has to be looking
Mm-hmm.
at that contract and just licking his chops. They gave up the high second round pick,
Mm-hmm.
which that was a pick, that high second round pick. That was an area that I would have loved to pick, versus or our pick that we had. Anybody
Mm-hmm.
besides Tyler Newbin, I would have been a little uneasy about. So
Mm-hmm.
my brain first did go to Brian Burns. But it's got to be Malik Neighbors. Like it's got to be Malik Neighbors. Just what we've seen from him from the spring, what we've heard from some of the beat reporters of the spring, dude. He's a guy that's wearing a single digit number, and he looks beefy, which I
Yeah.
usually have like this whole thing in my brain of, if you were a number in the 80s, you look maybe 10 pounds heavier, or you
Mm-hmm.
look somehow 2 inches taller than you actually are. And then if you're wearing a number in the single digits, you're somehow 2 inches shorter and maybe 10 pounds lighter than what you actually are. No, he's a number nine. And I think Cole Beasley was number nine last year. He looked very
Mm-hmm.
tiny. Malik Neighbors, where's that number nine? And he looks beefy, man. And he's only listed as like 6 foot,
Yeah.
205 pounds, something like that. But he looks like bigger than that. So hopefully the whole strength transition, that'll be there. But regardless of whether Daniel Jones is throwing a deep ball or not, regardless of whether what quarterback is in there, because we know that Drew Lock can do it, or will and can do it. Um, how well he does it is a question, but we know that Malik Neighbors is going to be short, intermediate, long. He could be effective at all three facets, and that's what Dable and Shane during their press
Mm-hmm.
conference after drafting Neighbors, that's what they were talking about. All phases, all levels of the field, short, intermediate, deep. Malik Neighbors can be effective no matter where you're throwing him the ball, even though a lot of his highlight plays from LSU with Daniels did come when he's throwing it deep. So it's got to be Malik Neighbors, man, and I think he can be a 130, 140 target receiver, even from day one this year, if
Mm-hmm.
he stays healthy. And I think he's going to be electric with the ball in his hands after the catch, too.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the last time we had someone this explosive on the team was Odell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm so excited for it. It is hard not to make Odell comparisons with some of the highlights from the spring,
Hmm.
which once again, I was one of the people once again disillusioned fan for a really long time. Kadarius Toney and Odell had very similar measurements, and Kadarius highlights at Florida looked pretty good, and then obviously that turned into a massive shit show as well.
Oh, no. I mean,
But,
I wouldn't even like say the talent's there. And that's the thing where the talent with Tony is there. The talent with, Odell was there. And I would even say, like, yeah, having Odell in New York was not a failure by any means. If anything,
oh,
it,
definitely
it,
not.
if anything, his departure helped get Dexter Lawrence. It got
Yeah,
Jabril Peppers for a couple years, and then, O'Shane Zimenez. But, it was even just a win of Jabril Peppers and,
Dexter
Dexter
Lawrence.
Lawrence. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a win within itself. So really, the talent is never a question with some of these guys. It's just,
work ethic.
can you be a work ethic, and can you be a good teammate that's kind of
Hmm.
just here for the team? And there was
Yeah.
even some whispers about that before the draft of if Malik Neighbors is going to be that guy. But if the Giants get him the ball and if the Giants win football games, I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Hmm. I like see like with Odell, I don't think I ever like had an issue with it because even like all of the like rage moments on the sideline were because he was pissed that he wasn't winning, which I think you need on a team. Like you need one or
Yeah.
two people. Like I'm a Laker fan. I always say that like you need a Draymond Green on every basketball team
Hmm.
because you need someone that's just like willing to do anything to win.
Right.
And Like, I was at the Ravens game where he scored two and scored the game winner in
Yeah.
2016 and proposed to the kicking net. Um, the kicking net was my like him proposing to the kicking net was my iPhone lock screen for like 3 years.
But dude, it was not none of that stuff. I feel like was the straw that broke the camel's back with him in New York. It was that Lil Wayne interview that he did. I think it was maybe with Josina Anderson at the time or
Hmm.
ESPN.
Hmm.
That's what broke the camel's back. Where you could do all that stuff. You can punch holes in lockers. You can piss on the football field. Whatever. And hey, that all that stuff is cool. But it's the second that you talk bad about your teammates, talk bad about your quarterback, and even
Hmm.
if he was right, by the way.
Yeah.
Where like I didn't love Eli's last part of his career, and I thought they held on to him for way too long. Yada yada. He was right, but you don't do that, and that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. So none of that stuff that like everybody talks about, oh, with Josh Norman and none of that stuff had I think anything to do with his departure. It was Sunday morning. We all woke up to when the Giants play the Panthers. And by the way, the Giants played the Panthers that day. That was the first time that they scored 30 points and I don't know how long in 28 in like 2018. But you woke up to that Lil Wayne, Odell Beckham Jr., Josina Anderson, and how Odell Beckham Jr. is talking about how, Pat Shermer and Eli Manning aren't doing a great job on national television. That's what
Yeah.
did it in.
Was that the Panther game where Odell threw a touchdown to Saquon
Yes, it was.
and then Graham Gano hit another field goal?
Yes, it was.
If he hadn't signed with the Giants, he would have been one of my least favorite football players of all time. Jake Elliott is number one.
He's Jake Elliott will be a Giant next.
I hate him. I went to school in Philly. I went to Temple.
And I
So
went to St. Joe's.
no, I saw that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I forgot to write that down. But like being around Philly fans for 4 years was a fun experience as a
Hmm.
Giants fan. But like Jake Elliott, I'm like I really like a lot of people on your team, but I will never. Obviously, I'm never gonna root for them. But like,
Yeah.
I hope Elliott misses every single kick that he ever takes
Yeah.
because I just hate him so much. But I also wanted to get your take on, and I know you guys have probably talked about this like ad nauseum, and you're sick of it at this point. But Hard Knocks is going to come out in a few weeks,
Mm.
and I'm very excited for it. What were your thoughts on the entire Wink Martindale situation and temper tantrum that he threw? And do you think that is a net benefit for the Giants going forward?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned even the Hard Knocks of I have like this dream, and it's people are calling me crazy. Even some of like the reporters are like they're not going to show any of it. I'm like, can you let me live my life and be happy and optimistic and excited about something before I'm disappointed again by this football team? Where that should like the whole Wink Martindale Brian Dable drama, that should be episode one.
Oh, for sure.
That was made for television because you had you know, Wink Martindale's PR team did a great job through the 2023 season of making Brian Dable look like an asshole. Asshole. And I was even one of those people that was like, there's rumors of not just Wink not being happy. There's rumors of Mike Kafka not being happy. Like what's going on here? And then as time went on, the whole Brian Dable is taking Mike Kafka's play calling duties away, like in the middle of the game, and then he's taking on play calling, and we even saw that against the Cardinals. I made a whole video on it, in
Hmm.
like September whenever it happened. So we saw like these little crumbs as stuff was happening during the season, and then the season ends, and then the Giants PR team gets to work, and it's, well, Wink Martindale really just fully checked out. His ego kind of got in the way. He just wanted to solely run the defense and not take not even criticism, but feedback or anything like that. So I think as time has gone on, I've cooled down on Brian Dable being kind of like the bad guy in that scenario, where Wink Martindale really did not carry himself the
Hmm.
right way towards the end of that. But that should be like episode one. It should
Oh,
be Wink, Wink,
100%.
Wink Martindale wearing, I don't know if he was in a Giants hat at the time, but wearing his typical dress that he wears of the compression shirt with the cutoff tank and then a hat of him in the airport. And the Giants are still like, you didn't formally resign yet. You
Yeah.
didn't formally resign, but we're saying that you resigned and he's off on the plane to Florida and he hasn't and
Yeah.
he didn't formally resign as he leaves the tri-state area. So I think whatever is shown on this Hard Knocks, it will make the Giants look good. I mean, that's
Yeah.
even if Brian Dable was really at fault, it's gonna make Wink Martindale look like an asshole. Or if it even some people are like Jordan Ronan and some of the other reporters like, oh, none of that's gonna be shown. None of that's gonna be shown. Like, how do you not show it? Like everybody knew that it
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
How do you at least not allude to the fact that it did happen? But regardless, it's gonna paint the Giants and Brian Dable in a good light. And
Yeah.
honestly, at least in that scenario, I think, Wink Martindale was the child and the guy that didn't necessarily want to fully show up to work and follow the rules and instructions of his boss versus even a guy like Mike Kafka, who I
Hmm.
know for a fact is not fully thrilled right now. The fact that he is a young and up and coming play caller that is not calling plays for the New York Giants. That's how
Hmm.
he's seen. A young and up and coming play caller who is not currently calling plays for the team that he's the offense coordinator for. The third season, by the way. And Brian Dable even alluded to in the spring that Mike Kafka, possibly one of the longest tenured offensive coordinators in the NFL right now. That's how much
Yeah.
turnover there is in the NFL. But he's not calling plays. But still, Mike Kafka is an adult and he shows up to work every day. And, even if it's not fully with a smile on his face, he's going to come in and he's going to do his job. Where Wake Martindale was clearly not willing to even do that towards the latter part of
Hmm.
last year. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, I think you did. I think it was a good
that's
job.
that's my that's my
No,
brain dump.
you're good. You're good. You're good. I see. I think like obviously like I don't think there was any debate about who was calling plays in 2022.
Yeah, it
I
was
think that
Kafka.
was
Yeah.
it was Kafka, and then just typical New York media. Like as soon as the team starts doing bad again, and once again they were right. Like as your video showed, and others like Dable definitely took over play calling at some points in time,
Hmm.
but I also like we talked about in the beginning, like he didn't lose the locker room in spite of the Wink Martin, in
Right.
spite of both coordinators not being happy and the special teams coordinator at the time just being awful at his job.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a massive credit. And also you won, what was it, 3 games with Tommy DeVito at quarterback,
Yeah, it was a three game
which
three game winning streak.
one of the Packers game was so funny.
Yeah.
That game was so much fun. And then you see what the Packers end up looking like at the end of the season, and like the Giants have knocked off a lot of really good football teams the last 2 years under Dable with not as talented rosters as the teams that they beat. And
No, no, and they almost beat the Bills, man. That's why I've always just as the years have gone on, me doing this Giant show. I'm sure a lot of shows and fans will be like, well, I want to be great, and yes, I want to be great too. That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm asking for offensively is we have yet to fully see, and even 2022, it was average in terms of scoring, but I
hmm
wouldn't call that Giants offense like above average or great.
yeah.
I want to see a well-rounded, average Giants offense. That's what I want to
hmm
see. Because even in 2022, they were last in explosive plays, which that's the biggest correlation to winning and losing football games in the NFL is can you produce explosive plays and can you prevent explosive plays? My favorite stat as the years have gone on, I actually can pull it up and I can pull it up quickly because that's how handy I have this stat. So I did this back in February. Most important stat of the year. Records of teams based on where they finish in explosive pass play rankings in game neutral situations. Game neutral situation being the margin is between 0 points and 10 points. So the top 10 teams that finished in explosive pass play rankings, the top 10 teams that did it the most often, they had a record of 118 and 69. That's a 63.1% winning percentage. The middle 11 teams had a 48.6%, and then bottom 10 teams were 37%. And I'm telling you, it's the same thing every single year, where these teams that produce explosive plays at a top 10 rate, 60% winning percentage, and then it goes down to 40 and then 30.
hmm
Every single year. There are outliers, but every single year it's the same thing. And that is what I've been begging for, a somewhat average explosive passing offense for years. We have yet to see it. And the year that we see it, I guarantee you, even if the Giants aren't winning like 9, 10, 11 games, whatever,
Hmm.
the brand of football is going to
It's
feel
gonna
so
be
much different and it's going to feel so much better. And that is when we will start to say, okay, we're actually starting to see progress here.
yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think we're like this is the first off season in a while where I think we've taken like solid steps to get to that and not just throwing money at Kenny Galladay, which in Dave Gettleman's defense, I was very excited when that happened.
Oh, yeah, everybody was.
And yeah,
He
that
was
scarred
even
me
good.
forever.
He was good in 2021. He was good. It was just, dude, I hate Jason Garrett more than I hate Dave
Oh,
Gettleman. That's a rant that
I
I don't really want. If you want to get into it, we can. But
oh
I hate him more than Gettleman.
I stopped watching Football Night in America, which was one of my favorite pregame shows ever, just because I had to listen to his voice, and I cannot do that. He should never be allowed to comment on football again, as far as I'm concerned. And I was talking about this with Arif Hassan a few weeks ago. I fully think that hiring Jason Garrett to be the offensive coordinator fucked up Daniel Jones's career.
Oh yeah,
And if that hadn't happened, he'd be at least top 14 quarterback in the NFL right
yeah. I
now.
mean, I think you're seeing it now. Where I'm going to compare it to Eli here, where you had Eli with Kevin Gilbride as this gunslinger. I'm going to throw it down the field, sling it down the field, and then I think McAdoo kind of ruined him. Where McAdoo's like, dude, you got to, and also the offensive line was not good too. So it was out of necessity. Where like, dude, you got to get the ball out of your hands. You got to get like snap, release. And then I think by the time that Pat Shermer got his hands on Eli in 2018, he was ruined.
Yeah,
That's why Saquon Barkley had 175 catches his rookie year because he had Eli just dumping it off, and it's like, dude,
yeah,
man, like this
just
is this
throw
is
it.
killing me. So I think Garrett's influence on Jones was the same thing because you had Jones with Shermer as this ballsy, despite a really bad offensive line and Nate Solder being the worst left tackle in football. Daniel Jones was holding on to the ball, pushing it down the field, and trying to make something happen. Of course, the turnovers, it came at the cost of turning the ball over a lot. But I think that could be, if there's one thing that can be kind of controlled in a NFL quarterback, it's it's turnovers. Like, hey,
Hmm.
let's be smart. Let's be smarter with the football. And I think Garrett comes in here, Judge comes in here, and I put Judge as part of this too. It's not just all Garrett.
Oh, 100%.
Garrett comes in here and like, all right, we need to take all of that out of you, that aggressiveness, because we're going to play afraid of the turnover. Like, we're going to be deathly afraid of the turnover. So we're going to do anything possible to not turn over the football. And his offensive philosophy was we're going to run 3 plays and we're going to get 11 yards. And it
Yeah.
was painful, painful,
Hey,
painful, painful. And I think now you're seeing Dable's like, sling it, bro. Like
yeah,
let's see it. Like don't like Dable came in here. There were quotes of Dable's first off season saying, you know what, a couple interceptions won't really hurt. And lo and behold, it's the opposite. Where Jones, I think,
yeah,
had the lowest interception rate in the league in 2022. So they really did a
yeah.
good job of taking care of the football. So
I
yeah,
mean,
man,
and even like 2022, he was taking care of the football, but they were also like being very creative. So like the offense was somewhat
functioning. Yeah.
functioning. But what my hope is for this year, I still believe, and so his rookie year, Daniel's rookie year,
Hmm.
I went to my first like training camp ever, like training camp practice ever with my friends, and my sister really wanted to go, but my parents obviously it's like three 17-year-olds, so my sister's right. They're like, you cannot take your sister with you. So I was like, okay, on my way back, I'll get her one of the souvenir footballs. And then we're waiting for our ride, and we see like the area where like the season ticket members can go in and like meet the players. And there's nobody like not letting people in or checking to see if you can go in or not. So we just walk on in there, and Daniel Jones ends up signing that football.
Hmm.
So then obviously I'm like, yeah, I'm not giving this to my sister. But so like I've always like, that was like one of my first like athlete interactions. So I've always just had like a special place for Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
And I also like unbiasedly believe that he is a dog in terms of work ethic. And I think that if you combine the 2022 Daniel Jones with the really good elements of rookie Daniel Jones, that you can have a, like you said, an explosive passing offense with. And I think we have really good. I think this is the best receiver room that we've had since 2016.
I think this is the best receiver. Yeah, this is definitely since 2016, and I think this is the best receiving group that Daniel Jones has ever had.
Oh, 100%. Even without, and obviously the optics of Saquon leaving and him going to the Eagles is a big deal, and I get it. But I honestly think that the offense is going to be better
Yeah, I hope, man. It's
because Deb.
really the main thing for me. This is my biggest fear as post draft. Now that the hype of the draft and the draft picks have calmed down, right?
Hmm.
Like, oh, we'll see what they look like in camp, and then it'll pick back up again. But now that we're in the spring and now we're in the dead period, dude, I'm really worried about the offensive line. I am really worried about the offensive line. Now, it's crazy. If the Giants just pull the plug on Evan Neal,
Hmm.
and if they are like, you know what, man, you're a backup, and you're gonna let's see if you work at guard, but then also you're like the swing tackle, and they put Jermaine Elamuna at right tackle, and they put John Runyon back on the left side where he's most comfortable, and then we just have a competition at right guard, and maybe we understand and we know that right guard isn't going to be great, but Jermaine Elamuna is a starter in the NFL. He is a
Hmm.
functioning starter in the NFL. I think he is a solid right tackle. I don't know how he is at guard because we haven't seen him at guard.
Hmm.
John Michael Schmitz expected to take a year two jump. John Runyon, a starter, functioning starter in the NFL. Andrew Thomas, put you on an island, bro, and you're gonna handle business from that left side,
Hmm.
and hopefully make everybody else's job easier because you're gonna clamp it down. And really, the only thing with Andrew Thomas is just stay healthy. Please stay
Yeah.
healthy. But the fact that they have Evan Neal at right tackle and they have Jermaine Elamuna at guard, where he's barely played, and they're putting John Runyon at right guard, where he said that he is more comfortable at left guard, but they're putting John Runyon at right guard right now because they need to help protect Evan Neal. And Evan Neal is also hurt because they misdiagnosed his injury, which they said initially was like a sprain, but it turned out to be an ankle fracture. So Evan Neal has barely been on the field, if at all, during this spring. And hopefully through these next 6 weeks, he's cleared and he'll be all right for camp. But then you have to give Evan Neal the shot at right tackle. How long is that leash going to be? Then you're going to take away reps from Jermaine Elamuna at right tackle, and then somebody else needs to go in at guard. Oh yeah, but Josh Azudu has somehow turned out to be the swing tackle, even though he is technically a guard. Like it's bad. It's not a good situation where they're changing guys. Like they're changing John Runyon, who's been an NFL pro for a while. They're changing his position to make Evan Neal to help Evan Neal. Jermaine Elamuna, who's a better right tackle than guard, they're putting him at guard because they need a guard. They just need a guard because they didn't acknowledge it at all during this offseason. So it's not a great situation. It's just
Yeah.
not. I could go on
I
and on and on.
Oh, you were talking about Eli, and you mentioned how you think that he did take a step back.
Yeah,
I think like around 2013, 2014, like the offensive line has been awful since then.
right, right.
And I think even like in like the last season, like the second last game that he played against Philly, where the first half I don't think he like had an incompletion or
Oh, he
whatever.
was awesome. Yeah,
And like he still had like the arm strength and everything. He just wasn't like able to like duck out of sacks like he did in 2007.
right, right.
And like I think even if you have a functional offensive line, like he gets like at least two more playoff years with Odell, and maybe the absolute atrocious, like the worst playoff Giants playoff game that I've ever watched fully doesn't happen in Green Bay.
The ironic thing about that is that Eli was awesome.
He was so good. It was
He was
playoff Eli
awesome that
again.
game.
It
I
was
was like,
playoff
oh
Eli.
my god. I was like, maybe we can go on a run, and then they're dropping the fucking
It
ball
was
left and right, man.
I so I think like going to college in 2019 cured it, but like I would be on the verge of tears, if not crying, every time the Giants lost. And the Packers game in the playoffs, the Eagles game with Jake Elliott, and both Panthers games. it was awful. And I remember like the moment that kind of cured it was Daniel Jones's first game.
Oh yeah,
And I literally ran across the street running and yelling barefoot after Matt Gay missed that kick because I was so happy.
dude, this guy's gonna be a Hall of Famer.
It was no, I bought a Danny Dime shirt the next day.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was and
man.
like that was probably and then besides Tommy DeVito, I think that was like the most fun moment that the Giants
Yeah,
have had in like the last half decade.
yeah, for sure.
But with the offensive line, I was really surprised that they didn't get like a Christian Mahogany because like he fell a lot further than I thought he would, and I kept thinking that the Giants were gonna
Yeah,
get him.
even
And
the one spot that I will always go back to, man. I did not like the Drew Phillips pick.
mhm,
And Christian Haynes was sitting right there. Even Cooper
yeah,
Beebe, who
exactly,
keep Cooper Beebe,
exactly.
who the Cowboys took just a couple picks later. But then even Christian Haynes fell to the Ravens. I think in like the late '80s, early '90s, mid '90s, something like that. Um, but I did not like that Drew Phillips pick,
Mhm,
and it's like so I can't criticize like Joe Shane that much for the draft because really the rounds that matter the most are, I guess, the first 3 to 4 if you really want to draft like for need, right?
mhm,
And you don't solely want to draft for need. That's how you get. I think Jerry Reese kind of did that, like with some of those picks of like Eric Flowers, and that's how you get into trouble. That's how you get into trouble if you just solely draft for need and not drafting a good football player. Ideally, you want to marry the two. So
mhm,
Malik Neighbors, I love that pick. That's not a spot that you can criticize. Tyler Nubin, second round, there was nobody on the board for offensive lineman that I was like, I would have preferred him over Tyler Nubin. But round 3, Drew Phillips, that's where Cooper Beebe and Christian Haynes are like the two players that went shortly after where Drew Phillips was taken, and like that's where the Giants could have taken a guy. And then Theo Johnson was just an awesome value pick. And then the rest
mhm,
of the day 3 picks, I'm not getting mad that I'm not slamming the table that they fucking took Moasu, the linebacker, over an offensive lineman. Day 3
mhm.
is whatever. If those guys are even on the team 3 years later, I consider that a successful draft pick.
Yeah,
So yeah, man, that's my. It's really the only criticism I have of the draft is the Drew Phillips over an offensive lineman there.
yeah. And I was just googling it really quickly to see the free agent lineman available right now, and nobody really stood out to me at guard either. Like, there's not a
No,
difference maker left.
no.
Maybe if you want to bring back Tyree Phillips, who's like somewhat decent in his time here.
And
Which once again for
the
the
funny thing is that they cut him. They cut him at the 53-man cut down day last year.
yeah,
So
they could have used him.
that's the funny thing. They could have used him.
And this is just throwing it out there, and it doesn't solve the guard issue. But this is just because I saw his name. A 1 year Wetman deal for David Bakhtiari, just to see what he has left.
He didn't go anywhere.
No, he's still a free agent.
Okay,
The Jets
well,
haven't signed him yet.
I know he's really hurt. I think that's been his issue. I think the next opportunity that the Giants are going to have to really upgrade their roster, unless they want to go out and get a corner, because Stephon Gilmore's available, Dory Jackson's still available. I don't. I think Dory Jackson rubbed people the wrong way in the building with his effort last year, towards the
Hmm.
end of last year, and
Yeah.
a lot of those position coaches are still there. Jerome Henderson's still there. So unless they want to go out and get like a flashy corner that's available, I think the next opportunity that they're going to have is the post 53-man cutdown day
Hmm.
when these rosters start to thin out,
Yeah.
and then they're higher on the waiver claim this year, like they were in 2022. That's where they made the moves to get like Isaiah Hodgins, who's still here, Jason Pinnock, who's a starter. They got Fabian Moreau, who was a starter that year.
Hmm.
They got Nick McLeod, who is like kind of like competing for his starting job this year.
He's he's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I like
You
Nick McLeod.
posted a highlight of
Yeah,
him yesterday, I think. Like, I like him. Like, I don't think like you want to have him like as your solidified CB2 after Deontay, but like I think he's a good, very good player to have on your roster for sure.
yeah, so that's where I think the next time that the Giants are really going to have an opportunity to upgrade their roster, just where the NFL is at this point, because there's 90 guys on
Yeah.
every single roster right now. Um, Wait for those rosters to kind of thin out a little bit, see if there's a guy that you can scoop up, and you don't really want to live and die like that like they did in 2022, but for certain spots they may have to.
Yeah. And I feel like what everybody said when Drew Phillips got drafted is like he fits like the corner type that Shane Bowen likes to have on his team. So
Yeah.
maybe with that, like he can have it because like the mid to late round corners that we've drafted with Darnay Holmes, Cordell Flott, who else?
Aaron
Aaron
Robinson,
Robinson,
remember him?
Aaron
He is
Robinson.
still on the team.
Who was the guy that Gettleman used the comp pick on? Like a third round pick? Sam
Good.
Beal?
Oh yes, well yeah, that was a comp pick, Sam Beal. Yeah,
Like
remember him?
they haven't had a lot of success with the mid to late round corners. I hope Drew Phillips is a difference
Well,
in
that's
that
why
trend.
I get scared. I just get scared of drafting corners to begin with. And I've said this for years on Talking Giants. It's a joke, but it's not a joke. 30% of your cap space should be spent on cornerbacks because
Yeah.
I just think veterans have just they're just better, versus the drafting corners, whether you
Yeah.
draft them early or whether you draft them even a little bit later. It's such a crapshoot, man, where Adoree Jackson, while he was injured a good amount, I would still consider that to be a very successful free agency contract. He lived
Mm-hmm.
out the entirety
Yeah.
of his deal.
Yeah.
James Bradbury got all pro votes in
Mm-hmm.
2020. Plus, I think he would have lived out his contract if the Giants didn't need to cut him for financial reasons during Joe Shane's first year.
Yeah.
Plus, he also didn't really fully fit Wink, but he
Yeah.
was still a good player. So, even
Hey,
you
that
even you go
was
back to DRC, like, these
yeah, that
guys are
was a
just good
straight.
signings.
Um, James Bradbury was actually sent on a secret mission by John Mara to help the Eagles lose the Super Bowl.
That was great. Yes. I was there for that.
That
Yeah.
that was yeah, that it was all planned out. Like this is what you're gonna do. Sign with Philly, but we're getting close to the time limit here. I just since you do like not just Giants content, like you do overall football content. What do you think the like biggest move of the offseason is that people aren't talking about enough?
The biggest move of the offseason that people aren't talking. All right,
Or
let's talk about this. I know this is no shit Sherlock. People aren't talking about Caleb Williams enough. People are just because I think he's been the number one pick for 2, 3 years now.
yeah,
Like everybody knew that it was going to be this draft, that he was going to be the number one pick. I feel like people really hyped up Trevor Lawrence. Like, oh, Trevor Lawrence, and he's going to go in and he's going to save Jacksonville. And even going back to Andrew Luck, and rightfully so. Like, those are, generational QB prospects. Caleb Williams is one of those generational QB prospects. And I think he's going to be maybe not from day one, blah, blah, blah. But I think Caleb Williams is going to be a really, really good quarterback in the NFL. And I do not think that we are talking about enough about how good he can be right now.
it's
We're all,
because
go ahead.
I was just gonna say like he people people who like to get mad on the internet for no reason are just mad at him because the way he goes about expressing himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, once again, why are you spending time talking about how one person is living their life? Like, just go
Yeah.
enjoy your life. If it
Again, and
bothers you,
it's
don't
it's
look
the
at
whole
it.
thing with we just talked about it with Odell.
Yeah,
If it doesn't impact who you are as a teammate and how you work, who cares, right?
yeah, and I don't think one teammate has said anything negative about Caleb Williams,
Right.
and he is also a hilariously good football player. I'm actually happy that you brought that up. I think obviously the track record that the Bears have with the quarterbacks is awful because I think Justin Fields is really talented. They just fucked him up repeatedly.
Hmm.
But I think like Eberflus is a good coach, and I think Ryan Poles like knows what he's doing, and like all of the moves that they've made in advance and since drafting Caleb Williams, like they went out and got Keenan Allen for a pretty once again like a low risk high reward
Yeah.
type situation. You have DJ Moore,
They
who
stole DJ Moore
they stole him.
and they
The
gave them the number one over. That is such an insane trade.
if
You know what? We're going to give you the number one overall pick. Plus, we're going to give you DJ Moore. That's
if
fucking crazy.
if and when if and when Caleb Williams becomes a top five quarterback in the NFL, that is probably going to go down as the worst trade in NFL history.
Oh my God.
It's so bad. Like, actually awful what they did. And then what they moved out another spot to let Philly move up one for Jalen Carter. So wheeling and dealing. But I still think the 23 draft was probably the most electric draft I've watched or like paid attention to.
Really?
I mean, Houston trading back up
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. Because then you had Houston trading back
because
up, and they got back
that
basically back to back picks. Yeah.
that's why I think like the expectation for this year was like, oh, there's going to be so many people trading up and like this and that,
That
and
was kind of.
it was kind of meh. Last thing, what would your reaction have been if the Giants had taken JJ McCarthy? Because I wanted him so badly.
Would have not been good. Bobby would have had more of a like, and I would have let him steal the show because
Hmm.
he would have been pissed. I would have been pissed, man. It would. Now here's the thing. I think Brian Dable could turn JJ McCarthy into a fine quarterback,
Hmm.
and I even think JJ McCarthy. I think JJ McCarthy could win Rookie of the Year this year
Same.
because he's in a really good situation. But what is the New York Giants? Not a
A
good
shitty
situation
situation.
right
Yeah.
now. Not a good situation. Or you have a really great situation for any quarterback to step into. It's not just JJ McCarthy. But I I just didn't think JJ McCarthy, he was good for Michigan, right? But if we're talking about projecting to the NFL, I don't know how JJ McCarthy is going to elevate everybody else around him when really it was the opposite of Michigan. I think Michigan elevated him and made
Hmm.
him look good. I don't know if he elevated everybody else around him in Michigan. And they designed that offense to be that way. Where I think if they really had a Caleb Williams, lofty comparison, if they had a Jaden Daniels back there, right?
Hmm.
I think they would have let the reins go a little bit more, but they didn't. And it was a very run first heavy team and et cetera, et cetera. So I think Brian Dable would have done good things with him, but I think that's the cap. And I think we're currently experiencing that in a way with Daniel Jones,
Hmm.
where I think Daniel Jones could be a good quarterback, but can he be a great quarterback? And that
Hmm.
is what you should strive to look for and draft and develop in the NFL, because that's what you see win Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Great quarterback play wins Super Bowls, not just good or okay.
I think that my thing with JJ, and like once again, like I have not watched film as extensively as you guys have, so like your opinion has way more credence to it than mine. But like, they ran the ball a lot, but like they also put them in a lot of third and longs that he had to, make a play, do what he needed to. And what I got pissed off as, and obviously Giants Twitter before the draft was, one of the most toxic things that I've seen on the internet in a while. I think that people were saying that, oh, he's basically just like Daniel Jones in college. I'm like, that is categorically false in my opinion. Because he's on like the environment that they're in is much different. And
Yeah.
I think that JJ McCarthy is already more of a playmaker. I also just like the vibes and the aura, if you will. That's the new thing on the
Yeah.
internet now, aura. The aura surrounding JJ McCarthy is insane. So I think that, especially with Dable, I think like their personalities would have meshed a lot too.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like after Shanahan, McWay, and Kevin O'Connell, Dable would have been like fourth or fifth on that
Yeah.
list of people
And I think
that
they
you would
did.
want
I mean,
coaching him.
they wouldn't have met with him so much if they just didn't like him after the first meet. I think they really, I think they do their work on every quarterbacks every year, and I think that's just good process.
Oh,
But I think particularly this year they were really interested in taking a quarterback if the right one presented itself, and they really did try and trade up for Drake May,
yeah,
which
that
I would have been really cool with
I
that. So
can't wait to see that on Hard Knocks.
they're probably not going to show it, but I want them to, and I agree with
Oh,
you.
I want them to show everything. But thank you so much for your time. I will let you go so you make your next interview. And hopefully we can do this again as the season gets closer.
Thank you, Noah. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you guys for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.